Control of microorganisms.
Uh-huh. So, what is the journey about so far? So let's think about this for just a minute. Let's reflect on where we've been and where we're going. So we talked about why microbiology is important. We've talked about the tools that we need in order to study them. We've talked about all the parts of the cells and why they allow for the organism to survive in a competitive environment. And you all knocked the heck out of that first exam. You blew it away. You have completely changed the dynamics of my entire way I statistically look at things, because you all blew the highest, you blew the highest average ever by 7 points. It's amazing, amazing. So I might have to have an SI for every class I ever teach in my life.
That's a great idea.
So,
Classes should have SIs.
well, you're only gonna be good for another year, and then you're gonna leave me, and then I'm gonna be sad. But anyway. So, all those different things we looked at, and then we looked at cellular respiration and how it works. And then we looked at the nutrients and how they use nutrients, and we talked about different types of organisms based on where they live and what kind of environments they like and things like that. And that all culminates in the idea of control. Because in order to control microorganisms, you have to do one of two things. You either have to kill them or you have to inhibit their growth. And if you understand all that other stuff, what you're gonna find is that we can control them effectively. We'll never win against them. They're always gonna be a step ahead of us. But we can control them in very small environments, like for instance, in a patient's room. Right? If we follow the rules, we can make our patients go into a hospital, get better, and then leave, right? And so, that's for an endodontist also, right? That's not just for nursing or surg tech, because surg tech is really important, right? To me, that's a really great kind of career, but people don't think of it that way, right? Because it is fairly limited to the surgical ward, whatever that surgical ward is. But the microbiology that goes on in there is immense. It is huge, because you have to maintain what they call a sterile fill all the time. But you can't do that. The first time a person enters into a room, that room is no longer sterile, if it was ever. Because everybody in here is like Pigpen. Who's Pigpen? It's off the Peanuts, right? The little guy that's supposed to be dirty and everything's flying off of him. Well, you guys are just like that. There's stuff coming off you all the time, right? If you go over there, Yvonne, and you shake a little bit, we could see all these little particles fly off of you through that sunlight coming through. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying that would be what happened. And all that is essentially detritus coming off of you. It's skin cells. And skin cells act as magic carpets for the bacteria and other organisms. So they can land other places and they can start to colonize those other areas, right? There's been a lot of studies about all kinds of different things, right? One of my favorite studies is what's the difference between the morbidity, how often somebody gets sick if they're born naturally through the vagina or if they're born through cesarean. There's a huge amount of information about that. And if you think about somebody who's born vaginally or somebody who's born naturally, not only does your mother give you the first gift of life, but they give you the first gift of the microbes. Because as you're coming out of the birth canal, you're colonized by the microbes that are in your mother's vagina. And that makes you really, really protected. So we know that those individuals that were born vaginally don't get sick as often when they're in their early years, right? Because in their early years, they don't have any other protection other than what's there innately, right? After that, it's adaptive immunity, and we don't get sick after that because we develop immunity. If we compare individuals who are born vaginally to those individuals who are born by cesarean, the colonization of those babies when they're born through cesarean are given to them by the physicians and the nurses and the other people who first touch them, and they're all environmental strains. They're very different than the makeup of that beautiful area that's protective called the vagina. Yes, ma'am.
Is that why a lot of women, get upset or fight for them to not wash their baby for X amount of days?
That is correct.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting ideas about
Yeah.
being born, you know, and how you're born. Some people like to be bathed in a pool when they're giving birth, and that just means the entire pool will be completely turbid because of the all the stuff that comes out of the vagina when the baby's born, and so the baby gets completely immersed in all that. So it's really cool to understand all those things, and all those things are really important to understand. We just never think of it that way, right? But it's cool to think about that way, right? You can find all these papers about that, right? And then as we get older, it's really our immune system that protects us. Innately, yes, we get protected by the organisms that are in and on us because those things have really kind of evolved with us, and so they're very accustomed to us. And so therefore we're protected because those things have colonized our bodies, on our bodies and in our bodies. And those pathogens that are trying to move in, they have a hard time getting established as long as those other organisms are, because they keep them in check. They keep them in check for space and nutrients because they're more accustomed. Yes? I thought you had your hand. So again, we have to either kill them or we have to inhibit their growth. And so everything we talked about so far becomes a target for an antimicrobial agent, right? All the different parts of the cells, the DNA, the cell wall, enzyme systems, cellular respiration, all those things become target for our antimicrobial agents, right? And even nutrients and development and coming into nutrients, and even the temperature that they like and the pH that they like, all those things become facilitators for us targeting them and controlling them, because 80% of your life is spent controlling microorganisms. You just don't think of it the same way I do. When you got up this morning, what did you do? You brushed your teeth, control microorganisms. What else did you do?
Wash my face.
You washed your face, control microorganisms. What else did you do? Showered, you control microorganisms. You might have gone and made breakfast and you turned on and you cooked some eggs, controlling microorganisms, right? If you didn't have eggs, maybe you had oatmeal or cereal. You took the dry stuff, that's controlling microorganisms. It's dry. You take the milk out of the refrigerator, that's controlling microorganisms because of the cooler temperature. Refrigerators and freezers don't kill microbes, but they slow down their metabolic rate, and that's what control is all about. If you take a gallon of milk and you never open it, it will still spoil because milk is not sterile. It is pasteurized. So we reduce the amount of organisms, but we don't get rid of them all, right? Because the milk can't take high heat for a long period of time. It'll denature it, and we'll get leche quemada, right? Caramel. Yeah, good. Oh, and by the way, you can buy caramel or you can buy leche quemada, and leche quemada is much better. Cajeta, never heard of it? Try it, it's delicious. I put it in everything. Ice cream, coffee, you know, I put it in everything, right? It's better than creamer.
It's like a syrup or?
It's like caramel, but kind of in a more semi-solid form. It's delish.
Leche de what?
Leche quemada.
Quemada.
And that means
Burnt milk.
burn milk. That's what it means, right? And it's really cool to think about. We can pasteurize milk, but we can't sterilize it because we'll denature it. Denaturing is good. It allows for nutrients to be readily available. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's really kind of hard to drink very sweet milk on your cereal. Some people like that, right? That's just the way it is. So I always like to think about this from you have to drive something to dysfunction in order to control microorganisms. So what that means is you have to make something not work. And the easiest thing for any cell to make it so it doesn't work very well is what? What's the easiest target on the cell that you know of? The most important target. Not cell wall, plasma membrane. If you disrupt plasma membrane, things start to leak and the cell dies. What a beautiful target. 80% of all antiseptics and all disinfectants attack plasma membrane because it is vital for the survival and the functionality of the cells. And bacteria have cell walls, right? So they're more protected than we are. We're just membrane. So if we put iodine on an open wound, we're gonna kill everything iodine comes in contact with. Because iodine it doesn't care. Whatever it comes in contact, it's gonna destroy in seconds. It's not minutes, it's seconds. It's one of the most effective of all antiseptics and disinfectants we have. It sits right there on the 7th column of the periodic table, along with its colleagues, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. Those things are outstanding disinfectants and antiseptics. And they kill everything in seconds. Not minutes, not 45 seconds like Lysol, seconds. 3 seconds and everything that comes in contact is dead. But they form radicals very quickly. So they're not in the environment very long, right? Because as soon as they hit, they form a radical.
Yeah, we use for the indwelling folic acid and we use the iodine.
Yeah. For anything. So let's take a look at that for a minute, right? So if you go give blood, you go give 6 mils of blood for them to do a chem profile, right? You know what I'm talking about? Blood chemistry, right? If you go there, man, so the phlebotomist is going to go in there and they're just going to look at it and they might get a little alcohol, cheeky, and then they do this. And the really bad ones will they'll blow on it afterwards. Oh, it pisses me off big time. Then they take this little 22 gauge needle, they stick it in, they get the blood, and then they put a little Band-Aid on it, maybe fill it up with some Coban and you're good to go. Yep. But if you go give a pint of blood at the Blood and Tissue Center, they're not going to use alcohol. What do? Iodine. Unless they tell you what? We're going to take some blood from you. Are you allergic to iodine? And you say yes, then what? Oh, there's disruption in the environment, right? The person goes over there and says, and they get up and they go talk to somebody else, and then somebody comes and has a key and they come over to the wall and they unlock it, open it up, and out comes the methylate. Bromine, very expensive but damn good, right? But almost nobody's allergic to methylate. For those of you all who grew up in the Latino world, we call methylate sangre de chango. Ever heard that? What kind of Latinos are you? When I was growing up, Mom only used sangre de chango. So we would run around, we were orange all over. Orange in the face, orange in our hair was all orange. Everything was orange because, Mom was trying to protect us. That stuff works really great. But the difference between giving blood, a pint of blood, and giving 6 mils is they're going to use a harpoon on you. Are you with me? A 16 gauge, that thing is, they ain't messing around. That thing will leave a hole in you. You see all those little tiny scars right there? That's not because I was a user. That's because I gave a lot of blood, right? And I got scars all over it to prove it.
Because I used one for when I gave plasma.
So there's lots of things that happen that we don't really think about it from a microbiological perspective. That's why you take this course. Because to me, and I'm a little bit biased, but to me, this is the most important course you'll ever take going into healthcare. Right? You're not going to remember the insertion points of anatomy and physiology, but you're going to remember that Staph aureus can kill your patient. Because I'm going to drive that home. Right? There's some terms that we use when we talk about control, and there's a lot of them, right? And I just like to break them down into 3 main categories. Clean. What does it mean to clean? When we clean something, what are we doing, Jasmine? When we clean something, what are we doing? Not disinfecting. Clean is different.
Removing soil.
We're removing debris. That's what we're doing. And in the Latino world, when do the Latinos clean? When somebody else is coming to visit. Are you with me? Yeah. Oh, Tia Lucia's coming. I gotta clean the house. And you go in there and you sweep the floor and you wipe off everything. I hated that time because my brother always cheated. He would sweep the floor, but he'd sweep it under the rug. And then Mom would get mad at me because I wasn't managing the household, right? Tell your brother he's got to do this right. He would take the newspaper and stick them inside of the cushions of the sofa. That's cleaning. You're just removing debris. And that's a really cool thing to think about because it happens in a hospital too. If you go to a hospital, you never see a lot of debris in the floors. because they want you to understand that they have their house under control. And the way that we do that to the common person is we don't show them any dirt. There's almost no dirt in a hospital. You're not gonna find no dust bunnies in the corner, right? But they're out of control because they can't control these things, right? So cleaning is just removing debris. And Rebecca, you kind of fell into my trap because lots of people use these terms interchangeably, but from a microbiological perspective, they're not the same. Sanitize means something different. Sanitize means you're gonna clean with something, but you're going to reduce the number of microorganisms by 80%, and you're gonna target the pathogens. And there are two types. Antisepsis, which means you're gonna clean the skin or the mucous membranes, or a disinfectant, which means you're gonna use something really strong that's gonna really hit all the inanimate objects, right? And that's the difference. So you're never gonna wanna use a disinfectant on the skin or the mucous membranes, unless you're my tia Chema, which uses Fabuloso on her plates. I'm like, Tia, don't do that. And she's like, you don't know anything. I'll go, okay, I only have 4 degrees, I don't know anything.
My sister puts a little cup of bleach in her dishwasher.
That's fine, because again, they radicalize, the halogens radicalize chlorine, bromine, all, but Fabuloso is glutaraldehyde. It leaves a residue and it stays for a long time. It's not that expensive though. It's pretty cheap.
No, that's why it smells so.
Oh, it smells good. Yeah, well, they put a little fragrance in it also. The glutaraldehyde, you don't want to sniff it. There've been people who told me, we put it in a comal, we put it on the oven, we turn it on, and it makes the whole house feel good. I'm like, nah, don't do that.
I was gonna ask, what's your take on boiling Fabuloso?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
They're not good to breathe that in, huh?
Yeah. Huh?
Is it probably not good to breathe it in, be inhaling it.
My mom, when she would clean, she had no idea that what she was doing. She thought she was the best cleaner in the entire neighborhood. You could smell cookie, my mom. You could smell cookie cleaning. You could smell the bleach a block away when cookie's cleaning, right? Because it smelled bad. Well, she mixed Ajax and bleach together, and there was chlorine gas everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna die, right? But she didn't listen to me. So we just kind of stayed away until she was done. Sterilize is different. Sterilize, you remove all life. And that's really good, except it's hard to sterilize things. You can't do that at home usually. I mean, if you have a pressure cooker, you can do it, right? But where are you gonna put the sterilized stuff that you just pressure cooked? You with me? You have to put it in some place that's sterile also, because you can't pressure cook bottles. It doesn't work, it'll break. The pressure will break them. So now you have, if you're gonna can your own foods, you have to put your cans or your mason jars in the oven and bake them for a little while, right? Usually an hour or 45 minutes or whatever. Then you take them out, keep them covered, then you cook your stuff, then you put your stuff in there aseptically. So people are using aseptic technique at home, they just don't know, right? And then to make sure that nothing gets in, they put up some wax or paraffin on top, right? And then they seal it up. Well, they make it anaerobic. So the only things in there that can grow are the anaerobic organisms, or the organisms that are anaerobic. People don't think about what they're doing at the house, but they're doing microbiology at the house. It's hard to sterilize things. There's only 2 really effective things you can sterilize with. One of them is heat, right? And pressure, because you can't get above barometric pressure unless you pressurize the vessel. And the other thing is radiation. Radiation work really great, but people don't like that because they're afraid that the radiation is going to leave residue on the food. It doesn't, but they're afraid that that's going to happen. They're afraid that they're going to denature the DNA of whatever you're irradiating, and therefore you're going to have mutated DNA get into your body. It doesn't work that way.
So radiation is just vibration, right?
Microwaves they are not effective ways to sterilize things. They're good sanitizers, right? I've heard people put their sponges in there and boil them for I don't know how long. First of all, I'm like, why do you use a sponge? Sponges are awful. You know what sponges are? Houses for bacteria. That's all they are. Sponges are terrible. Use a brush instead. A nice rigid little brush, clean your plates. Don't use a sponge. Sponges are bad.
Wait, is it because it has all that moisture in it?
And
And it has a whole bunch of holes. Yeah, it's just basically I wouldn't even say. It's
got a lot of
cauterized
cavities
for
in it.
bacteria.
it's got a lot of cavities in it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
There's a
you
lot of
know,
surface
most
area.
people who never take a micro class just don't understand the complexities of what microbes are. And you all fall prey to the marketing machine, right? Because the marketing machine will do crazy things, like, for instance, they'll sell you something like this. I laughed so hard when I bought this. I just have a package because I've used the pencils. But I laughed so hard. This is Titanoboa, good pencils. But it says here they're antimicrobial. And not only it says that, it says antimicrobial protection lasts the lifetime of the pencil. Do you believe that? The antimicrobial agent is in the paint and the pencil. It's not going to get out. It's in the paint. But they sold these things for $8. I bought one because it was funny and I wanted to make fun of them. I didn't buy them because I thought they were antimicrobial. But there's a very famous company. Anybody recording me?
I could probably.
Oh, it's okay. Very famous company. I'm not going to mention their name, Fisher Price, but they actually sold antimicrobial toys. They said that the antimicrobial stuff was in the actual toy. And they made millions and millions of dollars. And nobody knew who was in charge, right? FDA said, it's not a drug, it's not us. USDA said, it's not a raw material, it's not us. The pharmacy group said, it's not a medicine, it's not us. So nobody had control over them until FDA finally took control, right? But think about it. Here's a toy. Little Johnny goes to the bathroom. He doesn't wash his hands. He touches the toy, cracks it in his mouth, and he gives it to little Susie. Don't even take it. And little Susie grabs it in her mouth. Well, then you have all kinds of bugs being transferred up there. And kids are dirty. And you want them to be dirty. You want them to roll around and make mud pies. You want them to pick up roaches and stick them in their mouth. You want all those things, right? You want them to go into a lake that's kind of nasty looking but jump around in it, right? You want all that to happen because that's how they update their immune system. That's how they develop immunity, right? So it's interesting to think about, but they're preying on our inability to understand what they're selling us, right? Here's another thing that I bought just because it made me laugh. Oust. And you hear about this? Oust lasted on the market about a year. And they had comedians touting it and basically saying it kills everything in the air. I'm like, really? What does it kill in the air? So things like this show up where they say things like kills
99.9% of viruses and bacteria.
which ones?
The
Which
ones
ones?
that they tested for.
The ones that they tested for. And by law, how many do they have to test? 3. And if they come to me and I'm a consultant in the pharmaceutical world or in the antiseptic world, I'm going to pick the 3 that die very easily, right? I'm going to pick Micrococcus luteus. I'm going to pick something like, I don't know, Caveria. I'm going to pick things like Pseudomonas aeruginosa. You just look at Pseudomonas wrong, it dies. You with me? These things are not strong, but I'm never going to give them an endospore former. I'll fail. I won't get paid, right? So there's a difference between buying this and buying something like this, right?
Or that caviar.
Or cavi wipes, right? So here are cavi wipes, and here are these other Sani cloths. These were known as death cloths because it had a little baby on top and had an extra, the baby's gonna die. Are you with me? But it's really interesting because if you look at this one's not even open. It costs a lot of money. I bought it just for a prop, but I might have to use it someday. But I want you to appreciate the list of organisms that are on it. You can hold it. Just read some of them off. Some of those organisms. You need to like say it louder.
Bacteria, viruses, bloodborne pathogens, pathogen, fungi, TB,
Keep going. There's a long list.
hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV-1, bunch of big words.
Bunch of big words. A bunch of big words. I think you get it. But these were actually tested by research and development for this company because they were targeting this for a certain industry. And that industry was healthcare. And the healthcare people are not gonna go with, okay, it kills the viruses, but which one? Right, they wanna know what, right? Because if they're having an outbreak of Pseudomonas aeruginosa in their hospital, they wanna be sure that they're using something that's gonna take care of it. But it's not really even about that, it's mostly about contact time. It's mostly about how long do those microorganisms come in contact with that antimicrobial agent. Which brings up the whole washing or cleaning your hands at HEB when you touch the buggies. Are you with me? You see people do that? You go in, they get there, they have little kids and stuff. Oh, don't put little Johnny in the seat. Let me clean it first. And they clean the thing. They're cleaning all the time, you know. And I'm in, I come back out, they're still cleaning, you know. One time I asked them, why are you cleaning them? They're like, I don't know, everybody else does it. That's what they told me. No, I don't know everybody else does it. Well, one person said, oh, but it's because it's a known fact that E. coli is on 20% of all these little buggies. I'm like, how did you know that? What published did you read it? I read it on TikTok. People are getting their news from TikTok these days. You with me? It's an amazing thing to think about how we are fooled by the marketing machine that you spend a lot of money on just because of that. Now just think about this for a minute. Come down, look, can we pretend? Like my little cousin, can we pretend? Come down the detergent aisle at your favorite HEB. What do you see?
Tide.
You see Tide because that's what they want you to see, right? Tide is right here, right? It's right there so you can see it, but there's brightly colored and everything smells beautiful.
I always just look down though.
You and I are different. I'm the same way. My wife says, go get detergent, and she said, and get the good stuff. When I think about the good stuff, I'm thinking about cost per gram.
Yeah.
And so I go over there and I look at all this stuff, $40 for 40 washes. Here I can get Arm & Hammer for $6 and I get 45. I'm getting that. Because it's all the same. There's no difference between Tide and Arm & Hammer, except what?
The smell.
Except the marketing ploy. And they want you to see these pretty colors and these great fragrances, but they also want you to remember your childhood when you were washing clothes with your mother. And you have really good memories of that. Because people remain loyal to a brand because it brings them happiness.
Nostalgia.
Right? Now me, doesn't work on me at all, right? I don't watch the commercials at all. To me, when a commercial comes on, you know what that means for me? Time to grab a snack or go to the bathroom. That's what it is. Or if I'm grading papers, now time to really pay attention while I'm grading, right? My wife said, did you see those commercials during the Super Bowl? I'm like, I didn't watch a single one of them.
But they're funny.
I don't know because I didn't see them. But, you know, I heard some of them were good. But it's just not gonna affect me at all. But it affects a lot of people. And that's why they pay $7 million for 30 seconds? Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes to show how much they benefit from.
Oh,
They
yeah.
wouldn't be paying
Yeah.
that if they weren't benefiting more.
Yeah, so I've done studies. This was a company who asked, I'm not gonna tell the name of the company, but this is a company who asked me to look at the colloidal silver because I don't know if you remember this, like 15 years ago, colloidal silver was a big thing, right? Oh, it's gonna cure everything. I'm like, no, it's not. People were drinking colloidal silver and colloidal gold, and I'm like, really?
I worked in a
Is that the thing that turns them color?
Huh?
Is it-
No, colloidal silver, no, it's bound to fat, so therefore it goes into cells. But they asked me to do the study just for some simple organisms, and my results said it doesn't work. But they wanted me to have data that said it worked. I can't do that, I can't make up data. So I got fired. I'm like, okay, that's fine. They hired somebody else and they got the same results, and so this stuff doesn't work.
Wait, what was the purpose of it?
Oh, colloidal silver?
Yeah.
This was a mouthwash. It was a mouthwash.
There's a cool show on, about a cult. And the leader died of colloidal whatever silver poisoning, and she was like green. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
A lot of like holistic eating.
Kim.
So what were they trying to get you to prove?
That the colloidal silver
Cure
was
it.
an antimicrobial agent that would not allow E. coli or Staph aureus to grow.
In your body, so you would like drink it.
So you would drink it, rinse it.
No, I'm not drinking nothing.
No, but they
That's what they
wanted it to
wanted.
be like, oh, this is the amount.
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
you
So
use
what
to
I
kill
did
all
was
the
I used
things.
diffusion techniques, right? So I took organisms and I put a lawn on a plate, and then I took pellets that I impregnated the colloidal silver in it, and I stuck them in there, and then I measured zones of destruction. Right? There weren't any. You guys are gonna do that later in the semester.
Oh, with the antibiotic.
Pretty cool.
Okay, so why are people like, now people are getting like chlorophyll and putting it in water and drinking it, like what, why?
That's a nutritional thing.
Yeah.
So
it's-
chlorophyll chlorophyll has some things that it can do for us, right? There's nitrogen fixation. Oh, look, she's drinking it. Can you want to talk about it? Why do you drink it?
I drink it because I could be better at intake of chlorophyll. I should be eating more vegetables. I don't.
There's a lot of really good fiber in a lot of plant materials. Right? People take NAD and FAD because they think if they take NAD and FAD, they're going to have more energy. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like the hydrogen water that I asked you about, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's supposed to-
Alkaline water?
Oh, that's marketing. That's all marketing.
It's not going to change the pH of your blood, although it claims it does.
Does it do any harm?
I don't think it'll do any
I
harm.
we have alkaline water at my house, and I was like, oh my god, I wonder if it's bad.
Because you
Google
make it or
says
because you've taken it from a well?
We just order water to
Okay.
give us alkaline.
Doesn't, I mean, I don't know what, unless some people say it tastes better, I'm like, okay.
I didn't think there was any benefit. I drink water, I'm not a water.
Well, so the one thing I'm drinking bottled water. This is actually a Gatorade that I didn't really feel like I should just buy bottled water, so I just put water in here, right? I was dehydrated yesterday, I was cramping. It's on Monday, I'm in trouble for Wednesday. But I just started drinking a lot of water to see if I could rehydrate myself, but it hasn't worked all that great. I've been dehydrated for a little while.
This family that I used to nanny for, they would get the, what's the water from the sea?
Potable water.
Tap water,
The
they would get
reverse
tap water
osmosis?
and put it into like this filtering device, and it had like charcoal and like all these rocks.
Yeah, that's a normal filtering device. Here's a special one. Anybody ever heard of life straw? Life straw? A life straw was developed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it's supposed to be used for people who don't have potable water, don't have water to drink. You can just suck the water, and it has a 0.22 micron filter in it. It takes all the bacteria away, so you don't get sick drinking that water. Isn't that cool? What a great little invention this is. Right?
It's hard to make that filter though,
It's hard to what?
make the filter.
Yeah, well, the filter is easy to make. We have machines that do them, that make them for us, right? So 0.22 microns are easy to make. They're everywhere.
My dad's an engineer, he designed laboratories and all that stuff, and he has like a lot of story, and I mean, that was a
Yeah,
lot.
when they started up, it was hard to make, but nowadays Milliport's got it down to an art,
Oh, okay.
right? Yeah.
Outdated information.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, not necessarily. So it was hard to make it when we started, but not now. We can buy filters all the time. You can go to REI and buy a 0.45 micron, and people think, oh, I'll just use this to go hiking. Fine, it protects you against protozoans, but not against bacteria. Right? Bacteria will go right through that. They're too small. A 0.45 will not hold them back.
I'll trust those ones.
The life straw would work.
What's that?
The life straw would work.
Life straw will work. So if you want to read this, I think it says. Yep. Removes 99.9% of microplastics. It's a 0.2 micron. Right. So not only will it take away the bacteria, but it removes the microplastics also. It's good stuff. I mean, I don't get any kickback from it. I have 2 of these, but it's mostly for props for me. Because I want you all to understand that we're getting smarter on a daily basis and we're doing really cool things to control microbes. We're still not gonna win. They're gonna be ahead of us all the time.
What type of filter does Brita use?
That's using a carbon filter, and a Brita doesn't really remove bacteria, it removes chemicals. It's still okay. You can use it. Still okay. This is another thing that's really beautiful.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen peroxide. Is it a good witch or a bad witch? It's a good witch. This thing, when you put it on, within 4 seconds, everything it comes in contact with is dead. It is really cool. Guess what the kill agent is here, Yvonne?
Hydrogen?
No, not hydrogen. Think you're playing. Oxygen. Oxygen radicalizes. It is a very, very violent reaction, and it fizzes like crazy, but when that happens, it's an oxidation of everything it comes in contact with, and it kills everything. So you have to be careful with this, because it can be toxic to us. Now at 3%, that's what they sell. It's not very toxic. And if you put it on your teeth to make your teeth whiter, and I don't recommend that,
Don't
but you tell them why.
Is it? It's not acidic.
It makes the teeth more brittle
Yeah, it starts to
over a
erode
period of
them.
time. Yep.
So I got a story from high school. My coach got his wedding ring caught on basketball, and then when he fell, it like
Ripped it off.
Right? And then when he went to the nurse at the school, they put that on it, and it like dissolved his skin, and like he lost a finger because of it.
Mhm. So this thing, you never want to put in open lacerations like that, because it kills everything. It doesn't kill just the bad cells, it kills everything. It's indiscriminate. So it's only good for superficial cuts and abrasions, but it is awfully good for those things. Yep.
Okay, so my mom, she has a bad tooth or whatever, and she has a habit of gargling or like swishing that in her mouth. Isn't that bad though?
It can be, but at
She
one
has
point,
it,
but at
though?
one,
No, she doesn't.
at 1.5%, it's not that bad, right? My favorite mouthwash is called HEB whitening, and it has 1.5%. And so you gargle with it, but it only takes you 2 swishes,
Yeah.
and then it's like, what do you do? Because there's so much oxygen being released, but it's a very good antiseptic, and it's not in a concentration that's gonna hurt your teeth. My teeth are kind of yellow for a reason. I believe that that's the normal color, and I'm not trying to augment that. Everybody has a friend that has white teeth, and if the lights are off, the only thing you see is their teeth, and they're like walking around, and you can see where they are. It's like a beacon, like, oh my God, there's so much brightness in there. That's not healthy.
It's a lot of product.
It's marketing. Right? Oh, by the way, the new data that's coming out, which I don't think has been accepted by the dentist, but the new data that's coming out from the microbiologists is basically saying you should not be using mouthwashes at all, because it completely changes the flora of the mouth. Holy shish kebabs.
It's like taking antibiotics, like it kills the good
I
bacteria.
mean, it's not necessarily like, it's not a must that you have to do. I mean, bare minimum, after you brush your teeth, you do have to rinse it out with water.
Not according to the 5 papers I've read lately. You want them?
Not saying. what
No,
you do
after
is-
after you brush your teeth, it's not good to keep the toothpaste.
But you can rinse it out with just water.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you said use mouthwash.
No,
Okay, my bad.
bare minimum, you need to rinse it out with water. Do not just like brush your teeth and spit. And
It's
that's
an
it.
amazing kind of thing that's going on, and I am very interested. First of all, where is it? Hispanic Juju, right here.
That's the cheap brand, right?
Yeah,
that's not
it
the
works.
best.
I mean, it works. So I was in, like, where I buy most of my stuff, I was at the Dollar Tree. And I was in there looking for Fabuloso, and like there was one bottle left, and there was a lady who bought like all the bottles, and she was gonna get that last one. I grabbed it, she grabbed it, and she pulled it away from me. I'm like, can I just have one bottle? Because you have all 30 of them, the other.
Ew.
So she
Some
gave it
of
back
the
to me.
survival people.
Yeah, I mean, those are individuals who have their own cleaning company,
Yeah.
and there's no reason for them to spend a lot of money from a company that just caters to them because they're gonna jack up the price of everything by 50%. So why not go to Dollar Tree and buy it there? Because you're gonna save a lot of money, right? And the people who you're cleaning their house, they don't care. They just want their house to be clean, right? They don't come in every day and say, well, what disinfectant are you using today?
What's the potency of it?
Unless they're like
But
super
mostly, like, they all
crunchy.
say they love that smell
Then they
fabuloso.
would.
That's what they love to smell when they come in.
During the pandemic, my wife said, shouldn't we be sanitizing everything that comes into the house? I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. I said, it's not really fomites that are actually transmitting it. It's mostly aerosols. And she looked at me again. She said, don't you think we should be sanitizing everything that comes into the house? That means what? You gotta sanitize. So I made 10% bleach. I was wiping every can down and everything. I'm like, this is for the birds. So then I bought
I found mine the other
the
day.
UV wand. This thing is so kick-ass. It works. So everything would come in the house. I would turn the UV on. I'd put on my glasses, and I would just wand everything for a minute. It was done. My cousin came over and he saw me doing that, and he thought, well, I'm going to get one too. So I told him I paid $160 for this, and he said, ooh, I found one for $30. And he bought me one. He said, here, cuz, I want you to have it, because he likes me and he always wants to make me feel like I'm good to him. So he bought this little dude. And it's one of those things you can stick in your car, right? So you can stick it in your car and you can like wand everything. The problem is what? This thing doesn't work, because I tested it in the lab and it didn't kill anything. We can do that when we get to the lab and we start working with UV. We can test this thing. It doesn't work.
How come they can get away with selling stuff that doesn't really do what it says it's
Because
gonna
it's
do?
classified as a light.
Because they say things like potentially could reduce the actual organisms in your house or whatever, right? So they don't say it does. This one does.
Yeah.
It's the UVC in there that's antimicrobial, so it works. Right? Yep.
Didn't you say it only, like, say if it has a capsule, then it will only get the capsule, doesn't kill
The capsule is
bacteria
protective
itself?
to a point, right? The endospores are even more. So if they're endosporic, UV is not going to kill them unless you hit them all the time. Yes, ma'am.
With UV products that do work to dysfunction, like how far outside of the range of the direct light does the dysfunctioning action actually?
Within probably 2 feet.
Okay.
Right. So this is an interesting story. We have UV lights in the micro lab at the Round Rock campus because they were going to do some biotech in there. So every night when they left, they were supposed to flip on the UV, and the UV would completely sanitize the entire room. The problem is they didn't tell the maintenance people, and the maintenance people walked in and they flipped all the lights on, including the UV, and those people got bad sunburns.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, right? So, and it depends on the concentration of light, but for something like this, I would say 2 feet. Yeah, and you'd never look at UV directly because it can burn your retina.
So,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
like I'm particularly sensitive to UV. Should I be using extra PPE when we work with the UV?
So you're gonna be more UVA or B, not C. So, but since you told me that, we're just not taking any chances with you. We're not gonna let you. We'll let you be the observer. Fair enough. Okay.
Is that the same type of UV that they use in the hospitals?
Yep, exact same one.
With
It's UVC.
UVC?
Around 256 wavelength nanometers. It kills a lot. But it has to come in contact with the cell, right? So I'm going to show you in the lab that after about 30 seconds, almost everything that comes in contact will die. But the problem with UV is there's just a shadow, right? Any kind of shadow, if the organisms are in the shadow, they're hiding, it's not going to hit them and it won't kill them. That's why UV can never be a sterilizing agent, only a sanitizing agent. Isn't that cool? Right? So we know the limitations and we understand how things work. But it's important to understand how all these things is tied in. right? And so if we think about that for a moment, right, all the different parts of the cell and the microorganisms that we talked about, all those things can be targets for destruction, right? Which kind of reminds me of my favorite album, right? Target for Destruction. Right? But it's amazing to think about that, right? And so this is one of my favorite charts. You don't have to memorize it, but we're going to talk about these three ways that we control microorganisms, right? Physical control, that means that there's an agent that comes in contact with it, right? And this is a physical means, so it's either going to be UV light, it's going to be heat, it's going to be pressure, it's going to be radiation, some type of physical force. Chemical control are chemicals that come in contact with the microbes, right? And there it's about contact time. It's not about the chemical, it's about how long the chemical comes and resides with the organism, whether or not it's going to work or not. Both of those, physical and chemical, directly affect the cells. The other one, which is mechanical control, doesn't do anything to the cell. It just removes it from the environment. Now, Donna, if you remove tuberculosis from the environment, are you going to get TB? No. If TB is not there, you're not going to get TB. Yeah. So when we have a tuberculosis ward, the actual room is designed so that it is a wind tunnel. Yes. So that everything in the room is negatively pressurized, so that when you open the door to the outside, usually there's an chamber where you gown up, you open the door, everything comes in, right? But what that does is it sweeps up everything in that room and it takes it up to the ceiling, and up there's a HEPA filter that removes 99.7% of all particles, and up there is also the one thing that UV is, I just give it away. The one thing that tuberculosis is very sensitive to, and that's UV. Very sensitive, it kills it almost immediately. Think about this organism that is so resistant to just about everything we can throw at it, but UV will knock it down very fast.
That's just because of vibration, right?
Vibration, it's about the effect of the DNA, it affects the DNA molecule.
Okay.
It mutates it so that it forms a thymine dimer, right? So does everybody know what's thymine? Anybody know what thymine is? It's a nucleotide found in DNA, right? And typically, thymines are bound to adenine, right? So you have ATs, right? And so this way they can be broken apart and be copied, right? So they can come back together later, right? So when you have a thymine dimer, that means that there's a thymine next door to me. I'm the thymine, that's adenine, and we join this way, and we're bounded this way. So now when, not you stay over there. But now when they break up like this, then we're joined here, and then we can't get copied because we're joined, yeah? So the DNA gets disrupted, and the cell dies. Isn't that cool? That's the mechanism of UV. That's the way it works. Now UV, at the exposures that you might get from the sun over a period of time, especially the closer you are to the equator, right? People closer to the equator are darker pigmented for a reason, right? Because they're going to have a lot more sun, and then they don't develop melanoma and other types of skin cancers. But we're having a big problem in Australia right now, right? Where we're losing lots of really fair-skinned Australians to cancer because they're out and about in the sun all the time, right? My wife is very, very light complected. And I always tell her, I said, you have to, when she's outside, she has to wear a hat, she has to wear sunscreen all the time. She doesn't, but I try to make her, right? And so it's important for us to realize that UV can actually affect us in negative ways too. Okay? Good? So here's one of the last things we'll talk about today. I am a firm believer that the best medicine is a combination of Western and Eastern techniques. I think anybody who doesn't buy into that is really losing out on hundreds of years of understanding that plants, that body manipulation, that tinctures, right? Tincture is a mixture of some antimicrobial agent or something with alcohol. That all these years of telling us those things work, they're missing out on it, right? Because we who practice Western medicine are mostly about pharmaceuticals, right? But here's something really cool. This is thieves' oil. Anybody ever heard of it?
I love these.
Thieves' oil is one of my favorite of all suspensions. It smells outstandingly awesome. You can pass it around. Do not steal my thieves' oil. Okay? Yeah. So thieves' oil was used a whole bunch a long time ago when people had plague. The physicians that would go around and tell, oh yeah, they died of plague, they would be wearing these like very heavy garments that would protect them. They had gloves, they had these special shoes that they would wear, and then they had a mask, and the mask had a really long beak, and at the very end of that beak they would put what we call cotton. It wasn't cotton, but it's something like it. And then they would saturate that in camphor and thieves' oil, and some people would wash their hands in it so that they wouldn't get plague, right? They firmly believed that. Well, perhaps we didn't have anything else back then that was gonna help us, right? But thieves' oil seemed to really kind of come in folklore, right? Another thing that has been inspired by the microbes is thieves' oil. What a really great topic to write about, maybe.
So what does it do exactly?
It doesn't allow for the growth of the organisms. It inhibits their ability to undergo cellular respiration. Okay.
What, that?
Uh-huh. Did you smell the cinnamon in it?
Cloves
The
and
Cloves and
Cloves.
cinnamon?
Yeah.
All of those things are antimicrobial.
I know you look delicious. I know my sister uses that.
Yeah, I put cinnamon in everything. Coffee, cinnamon.
Oh yeah.
So like if
Atole, cinnamon. I put cinnamon in everything.
But do
Right?
you, is it like actually, is it the ground cinnamon, or do you?
Ground cinnamon. I mean, canela, the sticks, I sometimes chew them,
Yeah.
right? But that's just me, because that's just the way I was raised.
Those are actually good.
Yeah, some people do all kinds of things with it.
you smell it, like it just goes into your system.
Well, that's the idea, but most people will kind of put it where they don't want the organism to come in. Now, do I believe that 100%? I don't know that I do, but it smells really great.
Okay, so how does it inhibit the cellular respiration?
It doesn't allow some of the enzymes to work.
It doesn't allow what?
Some of the enzymes to work.
Oh, okay. Wait, so did it actually work for the plague?
From what?
For the plague, did it actually work?
Not really.
Kind of.
There's no way to tell,
Oh.
but it was good folklore. Yeah. We'll stop there. We'll take it up next time. Any questions?
For sanitizer, you said it's 80%.
Reduces the population of microbes by 80%.
There was some other stuff you said.
It targets the pathogenic organisms.